Intro. Why does it seem like so many Arab governments fear Iran? At first glance, the answer looks simple. Religion. Ancient rivalries. Sunni versus Shia. Arab versus Persian. But the real story is much deeper and far more dangerous, because this isn't just a conflict about history. It's about power. It's about survival. And it's about who controls the future of the Middle East. Today, the Gulf Arab states are some of the richest countries on earth. Cities like Dubai, Riyadh, and Doha have transformed deserts into futuristic global hubs filled with skyscrapers, luxury hotels, and trillion-dollar investments. But across the Persian Gulf stands Iran, a country isolated by sanctions, cut off from much of the global economy, yet still capable of shaking the entire world. Not with massive armies. Not with invasions, but with drones, missiles, militias, and one strategic advantage that could cripple the global economy overnight. This is the story of why the Arab world fears Iran, and why one wrong move could ignite the Middle East. Chapter 1. The Day Everything Changed, September 14th, 2019. 4 a.m. Eastern Saudi Arabia. At the center of the kingdom stood Abqaiq, the most important oil processing facility on earth. Nearly 70% of Saudi oil production flowed through this single location. The site was heavily defended. Patriot missile systems. Radar networks. Advanced air defenses worth billions of dollars. Saudi Arabia believed its oil empire was untouchable. Then suddenly, explosions ripped through the facility. A swarm of low-flying drones and cruise missiles struck with incredible precision. Within minutes, half of Saudi Arabia's oil production was offline. 5% of the world's oil supply disappeared almost instantly. Global markets panicked. Smoke filled the skies. And the world realized something terrifying. The most expensive defense systems on Earth had failed against cheap drones. The attack was officially claimed by Houthi rebels in Yemen, but American and Saudi intelligence pointed toward Iran, and whether Iran directly launched the attack or not almost didn't matter, because the message was clear. Iran had discovered a new way to wage war, a way that bypassed traditional armies, a way that exploited the vulnerabilities of wealthy Gulf states. And suddenly, the Gulf monarchies no longer felt safe. Chapter 2. To very different worlds. To understand this rivalry, you first need to understand how different these countries truly are. The Gulf monarchies built their power on stability. Oil exports. Foreign investment. Tourism. Global trade. Everything depends on calm markets and secure shipping routes. Their economies are deeply connected to the outside world. Their skyscrapers, airlines, ports, and financial systems all rely on international confidence. Iran is different. For decades, sanctions forced Iran to survive in isolation. It adapted to hardship. Its leaders built what they call a resistance economy. Instead of relying on tourism or foreign investment, Iran focused on military self-reliance, missiles, drone technology, proxy militias, asymmetric warfare. And over time, Iran became extremely good at fighting indirectly, while Gulf states invested in luxury and modernization. Iran invested in surviving conflict. That difference shapes everything. Chapter 3. The identity divide. The divide also runs through identity itself. Most Iranians identify as Persian, not Arab. They speak Farsi, not Arabic. And culturally, many Iranians see themselves as heirs to an ancient Persian civilization that existed long before modern Arab states. Religion deepened the divide. Around 85 to 90% of Muslims are Sunni, but Iran is the center of Shia Islam. That matters because significant Shia populations exist across the Arab world, especially in Iraq, Lebanon, Bahrain, and eastern Saudi Arabia, where much of the kingdom's oil is located. For centuries, these divisions existed without completely destabilizing the region. Then everything changed in 1979. Chapter 4. The Iranian Revolution. In 1979, Iran's monarchy collapsed. Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini returned from exile and established the Islamic Republic. This wasn't just a change in government. It was a revolutionary transformation. Khomeini rejected monarchy itself. He argued that kings and royal families were illegitimate, and he openly challenged the rulers of the Gulf. For Saudi Arabia, this was deeply threatening. The Saudi monarchy bases much of its legitimacy on protecting Islam's holiest cities, Mecca and Medina. Now Iran was claiming leadership of the Muslim world. But Iran's most dangerous weapon wasn't its military. It was ideology. Iran encouraged resistance movements across the region. It spoke directly to Shia communities inside Arab countries. And Gulf rulers feared that revolutionary ideas could spread faster than armies ever could. Suddenly, Iran wasn't just another rival state. It became an existential threat to the monarchies themselves. Chapter 5. The Iraq War that changed everything. Then came the Iran-Iraq War. In 1980, Saddam Hussein invaded Iran. Officially, it was about border disputes, but underneath the surface, Saddam feared Iran's revolution would inspire Iraq's Shia population. The Gulf monarchies faced a choice: support revolutionary Iran, or support Saddam Hussein. They chose Saddam. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and other Gulf states poured billions into Iraq's war effort. They helped keep Saddam's economy alive during the conflict. The war lasted 8 brutal years. Hundreds of thousands died. Entire cities were destroyed. And Iran never forgot who financed the war against it. That memory shaped Iran's strategy forever. Iran concluded that it could never allow itself to become isolated and vulnerable again. But instead of building a giant conventional army, Iran chose a completely different path. Chapter 6. Iran's new strategy. Iran realized something critical. Direct wars were too costly. So, instead, it built networks. Militias. Proxy forces. Political movements. Groups loyal to Iran across the region. The idea was simple. If Iran was attacked, conflict would spread everywhere. Lebanon. Iraq. Syria. Yemen. The first major success was Hezbollah in Lebanon. Iran helped create and train the group during Lebanon's civil war. Over time, Hezbollah became one of the most powerful non-state military forces in the world. Today, it possesses massive missile arsenals and enormous political influence inside Lebanon. For Gulf states, Hezbollah became proof that Iran could expand its power without invading countries directly. And then America made a move that changed the entire region. Chapter 7. The fall of Saddam. In 2003, the United States invaded Iraq and removed Saddam Hussein. For Iran, this was a geopolitical gift. Its greatest enemy was gone. Iran immediately moved to expand influence inside Iraq. It funded militias, backed political factions, built relationships with armed groups. And gradually, Iraq transformed into a major zone of Iranian influence. For Saudi Arabia and Jordan, this was alarming. Iran was no longer distant. Now Iranian-backed groups were operating directly on their borders. Iran also pursued something bigger, a land corridor stretching from Iran through Iraq, into Syria, and all the way to Lebanon. This became known as Iran's land bridge. It allowed Iran to move weapons and supplies across the region more easily. And suddenly, the balance of power in the Middle East started shifting. Chapter 8. The Yemen disaster. Then came Yemen. In 2014, the Houthi movement seized Yemen's capital. Saudi Arabia viewed the Houthis as an Iranian-aligned threat on its southern border. In 2015, Saudi Arabia launched a major military intervention. Leaders expected a quick victory. Instead, the war dragged on for years. The Houthis adapted, using drones and missiles. They began striking deep inside Saudi Arabia. Airports. Oil infrastructure. Cities. And this exposed a devastating reality. Cheap drones costing only thousands of dollars could force Saudi Arabia to spend millions intercepting them. The economics were unsustainable. Iran had discovered how to exhaust wealthy rivals without fighting directly. And perhaps most importantly, Iran maintained plausible deniability. If attacks happened, Iran could simply deny involvement. This prevented large-scale retaliation while still pressuring Gulf states constantly. Chapter 9. The Strait of Hormuz. but Iran's most powerful weapon may not be missiles at all. Its geography. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the most important waterways on Earth. At its narrowest point, it's only about 2 miles wide, yet around 20% of global oil passes through it. Saudi Arabia, the UAE. Kuwait. Iraq. Their economies depend on this route, and Iran controls the northern coastline. Iran has repeatedly threatened to close the strait if attacked. Even the possibility of disruption causes global panic. Oil prices surge. Shipping insurance skyrockets. Markets react immediately. This gives Iran enormous leverage. Its economic warfare without firing a nuclear weapon. And Gulf states know they cannot fully secure the strait alone. That's why they depend heavily on the American naval presence in the region. Chapter 10. The nuclear fear. But the greatest fear of all is nuclear weapons. Iran insists its nuclear program is peaceful. Many Arab governments and Western intelligence agencies don't believe that. The concern centers around uranium enrichment. As Iran enriches uranium closer to weapons-grade levels, fears grow that Iran could eventually produce a nuclear weapon. And if that happens, everything changes. A nuclear-armed Iran would become far harder to confront militarily. It could protect its regional network of militias under a nuclear umbrella. Saudi Arabia has already warned that if Iran acquires nuclear weapons, it may pursue them too. That raises the terrifying possibility of a nuclear arms race in the Middle East. And unlike the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union, trust between regional rivals is almost non-existent. Missile flight times between Iran and Gulf capitals can be measured in minutes. One misunderstanding could spiral into catastrophe before diplomacy even begins. Chapter 11. Can this conflict end? So, where does this rivalry go next? One possibility is internal change inside Iran. Recent protests revealed deep frustration among younger Iranians. Many are tired of economic hardship, corruption, and endless regional conflicts. Some Gulf states quietly hope Iran weakens from within. But there's danger in that strategy too, because governments under pressure can become more aggressive externally. Another possibility is temporary de-escalation. In 2023, Saudi Arabia and Iran restored diplomatic relations, with China acting as mediator. Tensions cooled, embassies reopened, but few experts believe the rivalry truly disappeared. Both sides are buying time. Saudi Arabia wants stability for massive economic projects like Vision 2030. Iran wants relief from sanctions and regional isolation. But the underlying competition remains unresolved, and that means the most likely future is a continuing Cold War. Not full peace, not full war, but constant pressure, proxy conflicts, cyber warfare, economic threats, and military brinkmanship. Conclusion. At its core, this conflict is about competing visions for the Middle East. The Gulf monarchies want stability, secure trade, predictable borders, economic growth. Iran sees itself as a revolutionary power challenging the regional order. As long as those visions collide, the rivalry will continue. And because the world still depends heavily on Gulf energy routes, the consequences extend far beyond the Middle East. One drone strike, one missile launch, one miscalculation in the Strait of Hormuz. That's all it could take to ignite a crisis affecting the entire world. And for now, the region remains balanced between deterrence and disaster. If you enjoyed this documentary, make sure to subscribe for more deep geopolitical breakdowns and global conflict analysis. Thanks for watching.